The reason I chose this topic today is if you're like a lot of other people I talk to, you're not feeling like you're winning enough of the opportunities that you bid on. So if you submit a proposal and you're not winning as many as you want, then this topic is designed to begin to talk to you about it. It's actually an area that I'm very passionate about when it comes to PWIN, right? What's the probability of winning a proposal? And for me and for everybody else, really for you too, probably, is you're trying to shrink that number down so that you have your odds are better. So you try to have a higher percentage of win, and that's where I want to go. And I would submit that the reason you're running into these challenges with winning on the proposals is because you're not speaking to your true competency. And that's the purpose of what I want to talk about is how can you and what do I mean by that? But before I do, I'm only talking about one reason on why your proposal might not win. So there could be various reasons on why you're not winning. And we could talk about those in breadth a different day. But here, if I focus on the most common one I see with other people and that you might be experiencing, it has to do with not speaking to your core competency. And this relates to videos I've done last week where I say you need to focus. What is your core competency? What's the one thing you're better than anybody else at? That's why people often don't win, is because they really are competing in an arena they don't belong in. And I don't mean you don't deserve to be there. I just mean you're competing in a baseball arena when really you're a much better football player, to use a kind of a weird sports analogy. And so when I ask you in the chat to put your company name and your core competency, what I'm looking for is a single core competency. And when I see that, I begin to go, oh, that person, that company, that competency. So I use my favorite example just because it's easy for me to remember. Greg and Bay and Group out in San Diego, SharePoint. When I have somebody ask about that, I know who to refer them to. And because I know what SharePoint is, or I understand it, I can expand it a little bit to say SharePoint is one part of Office 365. He could probably help you there too. But SharePoint is that word that sticks in my head for him. And it's the same thing here. And so I'm going to talk about that in a minute. When I talk to people and observe what they're doing on opportunities, I often see a mistake that they're making is they're looking at opportunities and going, we could do that. We could do that work. So whether it's construction or IT services or other professional services, we look at those opportunities and we think, oh, I can do that work. And then that opportunity comes into your pipeline and you begin to do capture activities around it. You begin to spend money by getting anybody in your company engaged. If you're a smaller company, you got less people engaged, and a bigger company, more people, but still you're using up resources. We people are resources, right? You're using up resources to begin the capture process of an opportunity that's gone into your pipeline. And the reason it went into your pipeline is because you're thinking that you can do that work instead of going after stuff where you say, this work we can do better than anybody else. So I want to talk about that in a minute, but the difference between we can do that work and we're better than anybody else at doing that work. There's a way to play, and you want to be closer to the we can do better. We can do this work better than anybody else. I talk about government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. And what I mean is that processes deliver repeatable success. And so what I want to talk to you today about is a process suggestion that you should be having in place, and you want to get better and better and better at it. And if it's just a really quick sidebar on process in the beginning it's ad hoc. It's not even written down. We just work on it. And as we mature it, you can think of 5 levels of maturity on a process. As you mature it, then it's documented, then it's repeated by everybody in your company, then it's automated. So you can go to all those levels, but at the beginning, you just need to commit to saying, I'm going to look at opportunities that we know we can do compared to we think we can do. So this leads into the body of what I want to talk about today, right? Is the first thing is identifying task areas you truly do. When I had my last company, and for today's live session, I'm going to use my last company. We were a SharePoint company, and I'm going to use that as an example for your company and what I'm recommending to you. But identifying the task areas you can truly do. We did software development, so we could talk about I do all this software stuff. We did network engineering. We could do all this stuff. Cybersecurity, we played in solidly. We could talk to all these things, and we could say we do all these things. But really, what we did better than anybody was Microsoft SharePoint. Hence the reason I like Greg's company and I can talk to it, because I basically know what his company does because I did the same thing. And So when we were doing SharePoint at my last company, we were better than Microsoft. Microsoft created SharePoint. So our engineers were certified same as them. I was an expert. The other people in the company were experts. And we were at Microsoft's level. What we brought the customer that Microsoft could not bring was this intimacy with the federal agency's mission and how SharePoint fits into that, with this intimacy with the Department of Veterans Affairs and their mission to support vets. So because we could bring all that institutional knowledge of agencies into our Microsoft expertise, it allowed us to compete as basically a $10 million firm competing against a $10 billion firm, right? I mean, I don't even know how big they are, but I know they're bigger than 10 billion, right? But we were easily able to go toe to toe with them because we didn't walk outside of our swim lane. We played right there. And our past performances were all related around federal government SharePoint activity. And we were able to do that because we knew truly what our expertise was. SharePoint, just so if you don't know this, is an application development platform, among other things. And so application development, we could have let ourselves go farther out into, hey, we can do Java or .NET development. We just stuck in SharePoint development. There was more than enough money for us to go after projects in there. And we got known as the SharePoint company. And that's what I'm arguing to you when you're communicating and building relationships out there, that you need to be able to share that same information. But it's also really important when you're choosing the opportunities. If you go to sam.gov and see opportunities there, or go to PWIN or FPDS and you're looking out years, when you're looking at opportunities that you're considering putting into your pipeline and putting effort on, if you know your core competency, then you can vet or evaluate that opportunities, requirements, and scope against what you do. And you only, in my opinion, want to be writing proposals on opportunities that you are better than anybody else. A quick little caveat on the word depends here, right? If you're brand new, it's harder for you to have that, that experience where you're able to say we're better than anybody else. But theoretically, if you're starting a business, you're starting it around your own current subject matter expertise. You just want to bring that expertise to a small business. I've said this in other videos. Bring this to a small business, be part of their team, begin to get your experience, develop past performance experience as a sub, then you can move forward into the priming activity. And if you're farther along, you need to keep making sure as many of your experiences are in your core competency. And so that brings me to a recommended tool that if you're not using it, you should use it. And if you are using it, you should reevaluate your process faithfulness on whether you're actually using it as a tool to help you with capture, or whether you're completing a requirements gap analysis as a checkbox for management and leadership that you've done that. I love a gap analysis because it allows me to quickly look at an opportunity and evaluate whether that opportunity is right for me. So let me give you a little background on description of what's in my gap analysis templates that I use. First thing in there obviously is tasks. And so when I look at an opportunity, I'm looking at a PWS, et cetera. And in that PWS, the government will lay out the requirements. And there's many different ways, but I'm just going to use a generic way of you go into the scope section of a PWS and you will find task areas, requirements, whatever it is, listed 1 through 10, for example. And so I'll write those 10 down. Depending on where I am in the life cycle of an opportunity, very earliest stage, I still get 6, 12 months, or getting closer to the proposal, I will have more data. I don't know if I'm supposed to go this way or this way for you on the camera, but either way, the further in the life cycle I go, the more data I will have in my gap analysis. But in the beginning, I will have 2 things: the title of the task area and a brief description in this spreadsheet template that tells me what that task area is. Let's say it's a software development in Microsoft SharePoint or something. It will tell me, hey, we want you to develop software in SharePoint 2013 or SharePoint Online, whatever. And so I'll have those in there. Now I have a clear understanding of these task areas. And for this example, there's 10. The next part of the gap analysis, and there's many things, I'm only talking about the 3 most important ones, is the next thing is I rate it. I look at that task area and I rate it scale 1 through 5, 5 being the highest, 5 being we do this better than anybody else, 1 being, yeah, we're really no good at that. or excuse me, we're not really skilled at that, right? We have no experience. Our people don't have experience. We don't have any projects related to that, whatever. So you get that. And we look at that, you obviously want fives, right? You want to look at it and go, that aligns perfectly with what we do and what we can help the government with. And the last one is, so that's ratings. And the last one is past performance. It's a column that allows me to reference past performance that I have. When I'm looking at something and I give it a 5, I would expect right next to it in the column for past performance to see three bullets basically that say project 1, project 2, and project 3 on 3 different task orders, right? 3 of them that I can reference as past performance. And the reason I want to see that information when I'm doing a gap analysis is generally when you respond to the government with a proposal, they ask for 3 past performances, right? Very loose general terms on this. And if I know they're going to ask for 3 past performances in the past 3 years, what I want to be looking at this gap analysis is, do I have 3 past performances in the past 3 years? You know you're straying outside of your true core competencies if you can't put those in. If you can't easily say project A, project B, project C right next to a task area, then you have to look at that task area and go, did I rate it properly? And that's what I'm asking you to do, is to look at these task areas on an opportunity and truly understand whether it's in your space. And this goes to my next point on why that gap analysis, requirement gap analysis, could be so valuable to you as you move forward and when you might use it. So first example that I would say you could use it, and I hope you're seeing this, is bid, no bid decision, right? And bid, no bid decision is, some people sometimes make it sound overly complex. It really is, should we be going after this thing or not? The biggest problems with any projects or opportunities in a sales pipeline is people not stopping work. There's nothing wrong with stopping work, even though you've invested time up to this point, because at least you will stop investing. If the work of a project doesn't make sense, stop it. If the work of an opportunity doesn't make sense, if this opportunity really, we're stretching to say that we're going to be able to do it, or you can hear people in the way they talk rationalizing it. You might even feel yourself rationalizing why this opportunity fits in. Well, then the chances are you're going to keep investing and then lose the opportunity, right? The more opportunities you can get out of your pipeline, in my opinion, the better. You want opportunities out of your pipeline that aren't your core competency. Again, your core competency being, this is what we do better than anybody else, or at least as good as the best people out there, right? So the next thing is, and I popped out of the chat and I got a little distracted there for a second. So I argue, right, that you should always be not bidding and you should be trying to figure out why it's not there. I wanted to use this one example of a detective who's investigating a homicide, a murder, right? And there's this example that I learned a long time ago, just it goes in life, but basically say the detective shows up and to a murder scene, the wife's been murdered, the husband's standing there unemotional. And the detective looks at the husband and somebody whispers, hey, he did it. Look at it. He's not even crying. He's not upset. And the detective goes, yeah, you're probably right. The minute that detective says the husband did it in their mind, every piece of evidence that they look at will point to the guilt of the husband. What the detective should be doing is looking at all the facts. All the facts will lead to the truth. It is a fact that the husband is currently not showing emotion. But does that mean that the husband did the murder, or is the husband just not emotional? Really, the only fact there is that they're not emotional, and you begin to move on from that. Well, it's the same thing. Now, walk with me in this scenario. It's the same thing in an opportunity. When we look at an opportunity and say, I think I could do that. Well, the minute you say that, pretty soon you start rationalizing all the reasons you can. Wow, that customer is a strategic customer. We've talked about wanting to get into the Air Force, or I bet you we can find teaming partners to team with us on some of these other areas. And we begin to rationalize all the reasons to keep it instead of just investigating the facts. Is this opportunity the right one for us? Does it fit our core competency? Are we better than anybody else and we have past performances to show it? If not, let's throw that one out of the pipeline and get other ones in, because guaranteed there are opportunities you do better than, like you could do better than anybody else at. And what you have to do is get those opportunities out, so they're the bad ones out, so they're not distracting you or filling up all your time that you're not able to pursue the ones that really need your time. In the detective scenario, the suspect gets away while the husband eventually cries. They were just delayed reaction. Okay, so priming or subbing is another big one, right? Tomorrow I'm going to talk about teaming worksheets and how to find the best teams. But when you have a gap analysis, it allows you to make the decision, should we prime or sub? I would submit that you should only prime an opportunity when you can do 60% of the work yourself. Now, I'm pulling that number out and I'm saying there's the number. Are there exceptions? Yes. I'm not here to talk about exceptions. But 60% is a good rule. If you have 10 tasks, you want at least 6 of them, 60%, to be rated 4 or higher. And there's a lot of complex math I have in my templates that just roll all those up together so they average them out. But basically, you want to be able to look in and say, if it's 4 or higher, it's in our sweet spot, right? And I don't want to get too deep into the 4 and the 5, but when you look at this and you can't see that, then you have to begin to say, we should not prime this. Now, your second question before you just throw it out of the pipeline is, should we even sub on it? And what I would submit is you want to look in and have, at least in this scenario, 3 of those task areas that you could do better than anybody else. Generally, people are not going to give you more than 30% of the work anyways. You might find some small businesses where it's easy to find a 51-49% split. Those things happen for sure. But generally, if you're looking to build out a team, you might have to build out several people, or the prime needs to. But if you can bring in three task areas, 30% of the work, and tell a prime, hey, we can knock this out of the park, well, then when you reach out, you know what you can contribute to the team when you're talking to a prime. I've talked before about building a relationship with prime contractors, small or large. When you have a regular meeting every 2 weeks, you're able to bring opportunities like this forward and say, hey, we did a gap analysis, which is like an hour task at most. We did a gap analysis and we see that we're really strong here. We're not going to be able to prime it, but we think we could be a really good sub. Is this something on your radar? Are you interested in it? And if you have the right partners and you've understood what they're good at, you'll be able to see which partners are the right ones. And also tomorrow, if you come back tomorrow and you see my teaming worksheet, I talk about how do you plan before you reach out and talk to anybody? How do you plan to find what you need in a teaming partner? So anyways, that another value of the gap analysis is that. The last thing I wanted to mention is the value that you get when you do a gap analysis. So I talked about some of the tactical value that comes out of it, or the benefits, when to use it. But when you go after what your core is and you begin to use your gap analysis to only go after opportunities that are your core, pretty soon you'll be able to write opportunities much faster and many more opportunities at the same time or in parallel, right? When I had my last company, I could easily respond with a 10-page response within a day or two to a prime to say, hey, here it is. Because I only wrote about SharePoint. So everything we had was already ready. If I was doing a project on migration, I already had pages and pages of proposal-ready content that I could give to them on a data call and say, I'm ready to be on your team. And so by only focusing on your core competency, by using a gap analysis to look at an opportunity and know that your core competencies fit in there at some point, you will then be ready to respond. And by responding to more opportunities just in your core competency, you can then begin to spread out your reach to the size of your pipeline to many more primes, because you're coming in as their expert as a sub. Or if it's above 60%, you can prime it yourself. So anyways, by having this stuff done and really focusing on your core, you're going to be able to drive towards more content. I want to look over, see if there's any questions on there as we get towards the end of this session. But let me know if you have any questions related to this. Give me a thumbs up. Did it make sense? Put a comment in. Did it make sense? I want to look over here. And by the way, David Waltz is on. So he's one of the small business specialists in the Navy who pops on. And it's awesome because he's inviting you to talk to him if you're in his space and you got questions around it. So I would highly recommend you reach out. Looking down. Looks like we got a lot of introductions, which is good. That's what I was looking for. Hey, Carl, AWS. I forgot about that. Okay, I think we're good there. One of the questions I get from people is, okay, I need to reach out, and I have this gap analysis. How do I reach out? when I talk about building relationships, I talk about the difference between a personal relationship and a professional relationship. A professional relationship is not built on personal things like, golf or, you see my kids in the background or whatever it is. It's built on accountability, your ability to understand their need, right? There's that line that says nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. And so if you're reaching out to the government, they want to know that you care about their mission. If you're reaching out to a potential teaming partner, they want to know that you care about their winning an opportunity. You'll be part of it. And when you come to them with a gap analysis and are able to say, look, I can help this part of the proposal be really strong so that you have a chance of winning it as a prime and I can be part of the team, they will open their doors for that. It might take you a few calls to find the right companies to begin to build that relationship, but you will find that they'll invite you in because they see that you care about their success as well as your own success. Okay, I had one last thing I just want to remind you. I mentioned this already, that tomorrow's live session is going to be around building teams and tactically, what do you do to go out and build a team? I've got a template that I use. So if you show up tomorrow, I'll talk about giving it out. I wanted to remind you that I've got a finding and building relationships webinar going on April 5th. So if you haven't signed up for that, sign up for that. And the other thing is, if you found value in today's content, give it a thumbs up. It lets everybody else know on LinkedIn. If you're on YouTube or a podcast and you're watching it after the fact, definitely put your company name, Core Competency in there. I'd love to see that. And then also give us a thumbs up if you found value there. Last thing I want to say is government contracting. It's not a secret. It's just a process. This activity we talked about today is just one of the process steps that you can follow that'll lead to success. Hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.